The silent pain of motherhood. Do you feel ignored or unappreciated despite sacrificing everything for your child? Sleepless nights spent watching over them. Countless sacrifices to ensure their happiness. An unconditional love that has never faltered, all met with silence, indifference, or, worse, reproach. You sit in the quiet moments, replaying memories of a time when their smiles lit up your world. And now, you find yourself asking, when did everything change? Why doesn't my child see me for who I am? It's a question that echoes in the hearts of many mothers, a silent pain that few dare to voice out loud. You've poured your soul into nurturing this bond, only to find yourself questioning its strength. It's not the grand gestures you miss, nor the extravagant displays of gratitude. No, it's the small things. A word of acknowledgement, a look of appreciation, a simple moment when they see you, not just as a parent but as a human being who has given so much. Yet, what you receive is often far from what you expected. This emptiness, this longing, is not about material wealth or accomplishments. It is about a void no possessions or achievements can fill, the void of feeling unseen. This experience is more common than you think. Mothers across the world, from all walks of life, carry this unspoken burden. They share a universal truth, the pain of giving everything and feeling as though it was not enough. It's a pain that starts subtly, with little moments of neglect or misunderstandings. But over time, it grows into a heavy weight. You might catch yourself wondering if it's something you did or failed to do. Perhaps you question if you've raised them incorrectly or if you were too indulgent, too strict, or too loving. These questions spiral into self-doubt and guilt, as if the blame rests solely on your shoulders. But what if the issue isn't entirely about your child's behavior? What if the real challenge lies in the expectations you've unknowingly built and the emotional wounds they've triggered? The teachings of Buddhism shine a light on this profound struggle. They remind us that the root of our suffering often lies not in the actions of others but in our own attachments and perceptions. The Buddha taught that pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is something we create within ourselves. And this suffering grows when we cling tightly to how things should be instead of accepting them as they are. Imagine, for a moment, that your relationship with your child is a vast, flowing river. When they were younger, the current was gentle, and you could guide it with ease. But as they grew older, the river found its own course, sometimes veering away from the direction you had hoped. This doesn't mean the river has abandoned its source, it simply flows according to its nature. Fighting the current will only exhaust you. Instead, Buddhism teaches us to flow with the river, to accept its twists and turns with grace and understanding. This journey of motherhood, though filled with love, is also marked by challenges. It's natural to yearn for your child's acknowledgement. But what happens when that yearning becomes an expectation? And when those expectations aren't met? How do you cope with the feelings of disappointment, frustration, or even resentment? These emotions don't arise out of malice but from a deep desire to be valued. Yet, the teachings of Buddhism remind us that the key to finding peace lies not in changing others but in transforming our own minds. Inner peace begins when we let go of the need for external validation and embrace the present moment for what it is. This may sound easier said than done. After all, how can you simply let go of the longing for your child's gratitude or respect? The answer lies in shifting your focus inward. Buddhism doesn't ask us to suppress our emotions or deny our pain. Instead, it invites us to sit with those feelings, to observe them without judgment, and to understand their true nature. By doing so, we begin to see that our suffering often stems from our attachment to certain outcomes. When we release these attachments, we free ourselves from the cycle of pain and disappointment. Imagine a mother who spends her days waiting by the phone, hoping her grown child will call. Each day that passes without a call feels like a small rejection, a reminder of her perceived insignificance in their life. But what if she shifted her perspective? What if, instead of waiting, she chose to fill her day with activities that nurtured her own spirit, gardening, reading, meditating, or spending time with friends? By finding joy in the present moment, she could break free from the chains of expectation and rediscover her own worth, independent of her child's actions. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it requires patience and compassion, both for yourself and for your child. But as you begin to explore the timeless teachings of Buddhism, you'll discover a path that leads not only to inner peace but also to a deeper, more authentic connection with your child. When you let go of the need to control their responses, you create space for the relationship to grow naturally. And in that space, you may find moments of unexpected joy and understanding. Through these teachings, we'll journey together into the heart of what it means to love without attachment. We'll explore how to navigate the emotional challenges of motherhood with wisdom and compassion. And we'll uncover practical steps to release the pain, rediscover your inner peace, and embrace a life of serenity. Stay with us, because what lies ahead isn't just a lesson in philosophy, it's a roadmap to reclaiming your happiness and transforming your relationships. By the end of this journey, you'll have the tools to find balance and joy, even when the world around you feels uncertain. You'll learn how to nurture not only your relationship with your child, but also the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. This is not the end of your story, but a new beginning. Let's take the first step together. Lesson 1. The root of suffering lies in attachment. The Buddha once taught that attachment is the root of suffering, a timeless truth that resonates deeply in our lives, especially in the tender yet complex relationship between a mother and her child. The connection a mother feels toward her child is one of the most profound forms of love, born from years of care, sacrifice, and devotion. This love, however, can become a double-edged sword. While it inspires acts of selflessness, it can also foster expectations that quietly grow into unspoken demands. These expectations, when unmet, do not merely disappoint, they hurt. They challenge the very identity of a mother who has given everything yet feels as though she has received so little in return. Consider the countless nights a mother spends cradling her infant, whispering words of comfort, and promising them a world of safety and love. In those moments, her love is pure, untainted by expectation. She does not ask for thanks, she gives because giving is her nature. But as her child grows, so do her hopes. She begins to imagine a future where her sacrifices are acknowledged, her efforts reciprocated, and her presence cherished. These hopes are not unreasonable, they are deeply human. Yet, when they harden into expectations, they transform into a silent source of suffering. Picture a mother whose child, now an adult, chooses a path that diverges from her vision. Perhaps the child moves far away, prioritizes their career, or becomes so consumed by their own family that they forget the small gestures of gratitude the mother quietly longs for. The mother is left with a profound sense of loss. But what is this loss truly about? Is it the child's actions? Or is it the mother's attachment to how she believes the relationship should unfold? This question strikes at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. The Buddha's teachings remind us that suffering is not inherently caused by external events but by our internal resistance to them. When we cling to the idea that our children owe us love, time, or gratitude, we place the key to our happiness in their hands. This is not a conscious choice but a subtle, almost invisible process. Over time, the weight of these expectations becomes unbearable, not only for the mother but also for the child, who may feel pressured by a love that comes with conditions. But what if we could release this attachment? What if we could learn to love without clinging? To give without expecting anything in return? This is not an easy task, but it is a liberating one. To let go of attachment does not mean to stop loving. On the contrary, it allows love to flow more freely, unencumbered by the chains of expectation. A mother who releases her attachment to how her child should behave is not abandoning her love, she is reclaiming her peace. She is saying, "I love you as you are, not as I wish you to be." Letting go of attachment requires courage and mindfulness. It begins with recognizing the expectations we hold. Ask yourself, what do I hope for from my child? Is it their time, their affection, their acknowledgement of my sacrifices? Once you identify these expectations, consider their impact. Do they bring you closer to your child? Or do they create distance? Do they nurture love? Or do they sow resentment? By reflecting on these questions, you take the first step toward freeing yourself from the invisible chains that bind you. Take, for example, a mother who feels hurt because her child rarely visits. She may dwell on thoughts like, "If they truly cared, they would make time for me." These thoughts, though natural, are rooted in attachment. They assume that the child's actions, or lack thereof, reflect their love. But love is not always expressed in the ways we expect. Perhaps the child's love is present in the form of financial support, or in the way they strive to make her proud. When the mother shifts her focus from what she lacks to what she has, she begins to see her child's love in new ways. This shift in perspective is not about denying your feelings. It is about acknowledging them without allowing them to control you. When resentment arises, pause and breathe deeply. Remind yourself, "I release this attachment for my own peace." This simple practice can transform the way you experience your relationship. It does not change your child's behavior, but it changes your response to it. And in that change lies your freedom. Freedom from attachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean you stop caring about your child or your relationship with them. It means you care deeply, but without letting your happiness depend on their actions. It means finding joy in the act of giving, rather than in what you might receive in return. This is the essence of unconditional love, a love that says, "I give because I choose to, not because I expect something in return." The Buddha often compared attachment to holding onto a burning coal. The tighter we cling, the more we burn ourselves. To release the coal is to free ourselves from pain. Similarly, to release attachment is to free ourselves from the suffering that comes from unmet expectations. It is not an act of weakness, but an act of strength, a declaration that your peace is too valuable to be sacrificed for something you cannot control. As you embark on this journey of letting go, be gentle with yourself. Attachment is not something we shed overnight. It is a habit formed over years, rooted in love and hope, but with mindfulness and compassion. It is a habit that can be transformed. Start small. Each time you notice yourself clinging to an expectation, take a moment to breathe and reflect. Ask yourself, is this thought serving my peace? Or is it stealing it? Over time, these small moments of awareness will accumulate, guiding you toward a deeper sense of freedom and serenity. When you release your attachment, you make space for a new kind of love, a love that is expansive and liberating. This love is not bound by conditions or demands. It is a love that allows you to see your child as they are, not as you wish them to be. It is a love that allows you to find joy in your relationship, even when it does not meet your expectations. And most importantly, it is a love that allows you to nurture yourself, to find peace within, and to embrace the present moment for all that it offers. This is the gift of letting go. It is not a loss, but a gain of freedom, of peace, and of a love that is boundless and true. It is a journey worth taking, not only for your relationship with your child, but for your own happiness and well-being. As you walk this path, Remember that you are not alone. The Buddha's teachings are there to guide you, reminding you that the root of suffering lies not in what others do but in how we respond. And in that response lies the power to transform your pain into peace. Lesson 2. True love is without conditions. In Buddhism, metta, or loving kindness, teaches us that love in its truest form is unconditional. It is expansive and boundless, capable of nurturing both the giver and the receiver. Yet, even the purest love can become tangled with expectations. Over time, the quiet hope for recognition, gratitude, or reciprocation can creep in, turning an act of selfless giving into one quietly burdened by longing. This is especially true in the sacred bond between a mother and her child, where love flows naturally but may unknowingly become weighed down by silent demands. Imagine a mother who dedicates her entire being to raising her children. She stays up late when they are sick, sacrifices her personal dreams to provide for their future, and puts their needs above her own at every turn. In these moments, her love is pure, born out of her natural instinct to nurture and protect. She does not stop to calculate what she might receive in return. But as the years go by, and her children grow into their own lives, she begins to notice their actions or inactions. Perhaps they don't visit as often as she hoped, or their words of gratitude are fewer than she imagined. These small disappointments begin to build, and without realizing it, she starts to question whether her love has been truly valued. This quiet shift is not unusual. It is human to hope for acknowledgement, especially after giving so much. However, the teachings of metta remind us that true love does not operate as a transaction. It does not say, "I gave you this, so you owe me that." Instead, it says, "I love you because I choose to," without expecting anything in return. This form of love, free from conditions, is not only liberating for the one who gives it but also for the one who receives it. It allows relationships to flourish without the weight of obligation or guilt. Consider the story of a mother who feels unappreciated by her adult child. She has sacrificed years of her life to ensure their happiness and success. Yet now, she finds herself resenting their perceived indifference. Each time her child misses a visit or forgets to call, her heart aches. She wonders, do they not see what I've done for them? Do they not care? But what if she paused and looked at her child's actions through a different lens? Perhaps the child, busy with their own responsibilities, expresses love in ways she has not noticed through a brief but heartfelt text, a gesture of care, or even the effort they put into building a life that honors her sacrifices. This shift in perspective is at the core of loving kindness. By practicing metta, the mother can learn to see her child's love in its many forms, even if it doesn't align with her expectations. Loving kindness meditation offers a simple but powerful tool for this transformation. Sitting quietly, she can close her eyes, take a deep breath, and silently repeat, "May I be well. May my child be well. May we find peace in our own ways." These words are not just wishes for others, they are a reminder to herself that love begins with the willingness to let go of demands. Releasing these demands does not mean that her sacrifices were in vain. It does not mean that her love is diminished or that her desire for connection is invalid. Instead, it means finding fulfillment in the act of giving itself. Love, in its purest form, is its own reward. The joy of seeing her child thrive, even if they forget to say thank you, can be enough to fill her heart. In this way, metta helps her shift from a mindset of "what do I receive" to one of "what can I give?" This shift is not about self-denial but about self-empowerment. It allows her to reclaim her happiness, independent of external validation. The practice of unconditional love does not mean accepting mistreatment or neglect. It does not mean silencing your own needs or ignoring unhealthy dynamics. Instead, it means approaching relationships with clarity and compassion. If a mother feels hurt by her child's actions, she can address these feelings openly and kindly, without attaching them to resentment. She can say, "I miss our time together," rather than, "You never visit me anymore." This subtle change in language reflects a heart that seeks connection, not retribution. True love, as Buddhism teaches, is expansive and inclusive. It extends not only to those closest to us but also to ourselves. A mother who practices metta learns to direct loving kindness inward, recognizing that she, too, deserves care and compassion. Often, mothers give so much of themselves that they forget to nurture their own well-being. They may feel guilty for taking time for themselves, believing it detracts from their role as a caregiver. But metta teaches us that love must begin within. When a mother takes time to care for her own needs, whether through meditation, rest, or pursuing her passions, she strengthens her ability to love others freely. She becomes a wellspring of kindness, not because she is obligated to give, but because she is whole within herself. This inner wholeness transforms the way she interacts with her child. When her love is free from conditions, her child no longer feels the weight of expectation. They are not bound by an unspoken debt to repay her sacrifices. Instead, they are free to connect with her in their own way, at their own pace. This freedom often creates space for genuine expressions of love to flourish. The child, sensing the absence of pressure, may feel more inclined to reach out, not out of obligation but out of a true desire to connect. Unconditional love does not erase the challenges of relationships, but it reframes them. It allows a mother to approach moments of conflict or disappointment with patience and understanding. She may still feel hurt when her child forgets an important occasion or neglects to call, but she does not let that hurt define her worth or her relationship. Instead, she sees it as a passing moment, one that does not diminish the depth of her love. Imagine the peace that comes from this perspective. Instead of holding on to resentment, a mother can let go of what she cannot control and focus on what she can, the love she chooses to give and the joy she chooses to cultivate within herself. She becomes an example of metta in action, radiating kindness and compassion not because it is easy but because it is freeing. Through this practice, she learns that love is not a currency to be traded but a gift to be shared. It is a gift that grows the more it is given, nourishing not only the recipient but also the giver. By embracing the principles of loving kindness, she transforms her relationships and, more importantly, herself. She discovers that true love is not bound by conditions or demands. It is boundless, resilient, and deeply liberating. In this liberation, she finds a peace that no external validation can provide. A peace that arises from the simple yet profound act of loving without strings attached. Lesson 3. Boundaries are a form of compassion. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of balance, the middle way between extremes. This guiding principle applies not only to how we care for ourselves but also to how we navigate the delicate dynamics of our relationships. Often, love and sacrifice are viewed as inseparable, especially in the role of a mother. However, when love is offered without boundaries, it risks becoming imbalanced. This imbalance can lead to exhaustion, frustration, and even resentment. Boundaries, far from being barriers to love, are acts of wisdom and compassion that preserve the integrity of relationships and ensure that love remains sustainable and respectful. A mother may believe that endless sacrifice is the ultimate expression of love. She might say yes to every request, no matter how inconvenient or draining, thinking it reflects her devotion. While this instinct comes from a place of genuine care, it can lead to unintended consequences. Over time, A child may come to see these sacrifices not as gifts of love but as entitlements. The mother, in turn, begins to feel unappreciated or even taken advantage of. This cycle, though unspoken, creates an invisible strain on the relationship, eroding the very connection she worked so hard to nurture. The Buddha taught that to care for others effectively, we must also care for ourselves. This teaching reframes the idea of boundaries, showing them not as acts of selfishness but as essential elements of healthy relationships. Imagine a mother who constantly prioritizes her child's needs while ignoring her own. She might forego rest, neglect her personal interests, or suppress her emotions to keep peace. While these sacrifices may seem noble at first, they slowly deplete her energy and happiness. As her well-being deteriorates, so does her capacity to give love freely and joyfully. The absence of boundaries ultimately diminishes her ability to care, not only for herself but also for her child. Boundaries are acts of self-respect and love. They communicate a profound truth, that your needs and well-being matter too. By setting clear limits, a mother teaches her child an invaluable lesson about mutual respect. She shows them that love is not about endless giving but about balance, where both parties honor each other's needs and capacities. A boundary, when expressed with kindness and clarity, becomes a bridge that strengthens the relationship rather than a wall that divides it. Consider a mother who struggles to say no to her adult child's frequent requests for financial help. Each time her child asks, she feels obligated to say yes, even if it strains her budget or compromises her plans. Over time, she begins to feel resentful, not because she doesn't love her child but because she feels trapped in a pattern of giving that leaves her drained. Her child, meanwhile, becomes accustomed to the support, seeing it as a given rather than a generous gesture. This dynamic creates tension, though neither may openly acknowledge it. What if the mother approached this situation with a balanced perspective? Instead of automatically saying yes, she might pause and reflect on what she can give without compromising her own needs. She could then communicate her boundary with compassion, saying something like, "I understand that you're in a tough spot, and I want to help where I can. However, I also need to ensure my own financial stability. Let's discuss a way forward that works for both of us." In doing so, she honors both her love for her child and her responsibility to herself. This act of setting a boundary does not diminish her love, it enhances it by fostering mutual understanding and respect. Boundaries also teach children an important lesson about gratitude and accountability. When a child sees that their parent has limits, they learn to appreciate what is given rather than taking it for granted. They understand that love is not a limitless resource to be demanded but a precious gift to be cherished. This awareness deepens their appreciation for the sacrifices their parent makes and encourages them to reciprocate with kindness and consideration. Establishing boundaries requires courage and mindfulness. It can feel uncomfortable, especially for a mother who has spent years putting her child's needs first. There may be moments of doubt, fear, or guilt. You might wonder, am I being selfish? Will my child think I love them less? But remember, boundaries are not about withholding love, they are about protecting the space where love can thrive. They ensure that your giving comes from a place of abundance rather than depletion. To set boundaries effectively, start by reflecting on your needs and capacities. Ask yourself, what am I giving beyond my means? What do I need to feel balanced and supported? Once you've identified these answers, communicate them with clarity and compassion. Use language that expresses your feelings without placing blame. For example, instead of saying, "You're always asking too much of me," you might say, "I value our relationship, and I want to be able to support you. However, I also need to take care of myself to be at my best." It's important to remember that boundaries are not static, they can evolve as circumstances change. What you need today might differ from what you need tomorrow. Approach your boundaries with flexibility, revisiting them as needed to ensure they continue to serve your well-being and your relationships. The practice of setting boundaries is not only an act of self-compassion but also a way to model healthy relationships for your child. By demonstrating the importance of balance, you teach them how to navigate their own relationships with respect and mindfulness. They learn that it is possible to love deeply without losing oneself, to give generously without becoming depleted. Imagine the freedom that comes from this balance. Instead of feeling burdened by the weight of endless giving, you feel empowered to give from a place of strength and joy. Instead of feeling resentful or unappreciated, you feel respected and understood. This transformation not only enhances your well-being but also deepens the connection you share with your child. When love is balanced by boundaries, it becomes a source of renewal rather than exhaustion, a foundation of mutual care rather than a one-sided sacrifice. Boundaries are not barriers, they are acts of love. They say, "I care about you enough to be honest about my needs, and I care about myself enough to honor them." They create space for relationships to grow in a way that respects the individuality and dignity of both parties. By embracing boundaries, you protect the essence of your love and ensure that it remains a force of compassion, not compromise. In doing so, you honor the middle way, the path of balance that allows both you and your child to flourish. Lesson 4. Your worth is not defined by others. Many mothers carry the weight of their worth on the fragile thread of their child's acknowledgement. A word of gratitude, a gesture of appreciation, or even the smallest sign of recognition becomes the measure of their value. When these moments fail to appear, an overwhelming sense of inadequacy begins to take root. Doubts creep in, whispering questions like, "Have I done enough? Did I fail them in some way?" This spiral of self-doubt can lead to despair, as though the immense sacrifices and unconditional love given over the years are invisible and, worse, meaningless. But the Buddhist teachings offer a gentle reminder: your worth is not something handed to you by others. It is not tied to how others perceive you or what they give in return. True self-worth is cultivated from within, nourished by your own love and compassion for yourself. Imagine a mother who has poured her heart and soul into raising her children. She has sacrificed her time, energy, and dreams to ensure their well-being. Yet, as the years go by, she feels a growing emptiness. Her children, now adults, seem preoccupied with their own lives. They call less often, visit infrequently, and rarely express the gratitude she quietly longs for. She begins to question herself, wondering if her efforts were ever truly valued. But is their acknowledgement truly the measure of her worth? Or has she unknowingly placed her self-esteem in the hands of others? The Buddha once spoke of the impermanence of praise and blame, teaching us that neither defines who we are. Consider the story of a monk who was relentlessly criticized by those around him. Instead of reacting defensively or internalizing their words, the monk meditated on their fleeting nature. He understood that just as praise is temporary, so too is blame. Neither has the power to alter his true self. Similarly, as a mother, your worth is not determined by your child's actions or words. It is not diminished by their silence or lack of gratitude. Your sacrifices are meaningful because they come from a place of love and compassion. And that meaning exists independently of external validation. Shifting your focus from external acknowledgement to inner resilience is not an easy task, but it is a transformative one. It begins with a conscious decision to redefine your sense of self-worth. This does not mean ignoring the pain of feeling unappreciated. Instead, it means recognizing that your value is not tied to the actions or opinions of others. Your worth is inherent, rooted in the love and effort you give, not in the response you receive. This perspective allows you to reclaim your power, to see yourself as whole and worthy, regardless of the circumstances around you. One way to nurture this inner resilience is through the practice of affirmations. Each morning, take a moment to sit quietly and repeat to yourself, "I am worthy because I act with love and compassion. My value is not defined by others' opinions." These words may feel unfamiliar at first, but over time, they become a source of strength. They remind you that your worth is not something to be earned or proven, it is something you already possess. This practice, though simple, can have a profound impact on how you perceive yourself and your relationships. It's important to recognize that seeking acknowledgement from others is a natural human instinct. We all crave connection and validation. But when this craving becomes the foundation of our self-worth, it leaves us vulnerable to disappointment and pain. Instead of depending on external validation, the Buddha encourages us to turn inward, to find a sense of peace and fulfillment that is not dependent on others. This does not mean shutting yourself off from the world or becoming indifferent to your relationships. It means cultivating a sense of inner balance that allows you to engage with others from a place of strength rather than need. Consider a mother who, instead of waiting for her child's gratitude, chooses to focus on the joy of giving itself. She reflects on the moments of care and love she has provided, not as transactions requiring repayment but as expressions of her deepest self. She finds meaning in the act of nurturing, knowing that her efforts have helped shape her child's life. This shift in perspective frees her from the weight of unmet expectations. She no longer measures her worth by what her child gives in return, but by the love she has given, which is an extension of her own compassion and humanity. This does not mean ignoring the pain of feeling unacknowledged. It is important to honor your emotions and allow yourself to process them. But it also means not letting those emotions define your sense of self. When feelings of inadequacy arise, pause and ask yourself, am I placing my worth in something beyond my control? What can I do to nurture my own sense of value? These questions help redirect your focus inward, reminding you that your worth is not determined by external circumstances but by your own perspective. Reclaiming your self-worth also involves recognizing the ways in which you contribute to the world beyond your role as a mother. You are not defined solely by your relationship with your child. You are a complex, multifaceted individual with your own dreams, talents, and passions. Take time to nurture these aspects of yourself. Pursue hobbies that bring you joy. Connect with friends who uplift you, or explore new interests that ignite your curiosity. These actions remind you that your identity is not confined to one role, it is expansive and ever-evolving. As you cultivate this sense of inner worth, you may find that your relationships begin to change. When you no longer seek validation from your child, you create space for a more authentic connection. Your child, sensing the absence of pressure, may feel more at ease to express their love in their own way. This does not mean that every relationship will transform overnight, but it does mean that you can approach these connections with greater peace and clarity. The journey toward reclaiming your self-worth is not about rejecting others or withdrawing from your relationships. It is about grounding yourself in the knowledge that your value is not contingent on external factors. It is about finding strength in the love and compassion you embody, rather than in the acknowledgement you receive. This shift empowers you to live with greater freedom and joy, unburdened by the need for constant validation. Imagine the liberation that comes from knowing your worth is unwavering. Imagine waking up each day with the confidence that you are enough, simply because you are. This is not arrogance, it is a quiet, unshakable truth that resides within you. By embracing this truth, you not only transform your own life but also become a source of inspiration for those around you. You show your child and the world that true worth is not something given or taken away. It is something we cultivate within ourselves, through love, compassion, and the courage to see our own light. Lesson 5. Embrace impermanence. Impermanence, or anicca, is one of the most profound teachings in Buddhism, reminding us that everything in life is subject to change. It is an inevitable truth that touches every aspect of our existence, including the relationships we hold most dear. For a mother, this truth can feel bittersweet. The child who once clung to you for comfort and guidance, who looked to you as their whole world, will inevitably grow into an independent adult with their own identity, dreams, and priorities. This transformation is not a rejection of your love, but a natural evolution of life. And yet, accepting this change can be one of the greatest challenges of motherhood. It is human nature to resist change, especially when it involves something or someone we hold so close to our hearts. We long to freeze time, to preserve moments of connection and closeness. But clinging to what once was only amplifies suffering. The more we resist the natural flow of life, the more we entangle ourselves in feelings of loss and longing. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from the fact of impermanence, but from our refusal to accept it. When we fight against change, we are, in essence, fighting against reality itself. Imagine your relationship with your child as a river, ever-changing yet constant in its essence. In their early years, the river flows gently, and you can easily guide its course. But as your child grows, the current strengthens, carving its own path. The river may twist and turn in ways you did not anticipate. It may flow away from you, toward new horizons. And at times, it may seem as though the distance between you has widened. Yet, if you look closely, you will see that the river remains connected to its source. Its waters, no matter how far they travel, are still shaped by the love and care you have poured into them. By embracing impermanence, you free yourself from the pain of resisting change. This does not mean you stop cherishing your relationship with your child or that you let go of your love. On the contrary, it allows you to experience that love more fully, without the weight of unrealistic expectations. When you accept that relationships evolve, you open your heart to new ways of connecting. You learn to appreciate the present moment for what it is, rather than mourning the past or fearing the future. Consider the story of a mother who struggles to accept the changes in her relationship with her adult child. In their younger years, they were inseparable. They shared daily conversations, laughter, and a bond that felt unbreakable. But as the child grew older, life took them in different directions. Calls became less frequent, visits more sporadic. The mother, feeling a deep sense of loss, began to dwell on memories of the past, longing for a time when their connection felt closer. Each missed call and delayed visit added to her sorrow, until she realized that her pain was not caused by her child's actions, but by her own attachment to how things used to be. What if she could shift her perspective? Instead of lamenting what had changed, she could choose to focus on the new ways her child expressed their love, perhaps through a thoughtful text message, a moment of shared laughter during a rare visit, or simply the knowledge that they were building a life shaped by the values she had instilled in them. This shift does not erase the longing she feels, but it transforms her relationship with it. By embracing the reality of impermanence, she finds peace in the present moment and a renewed appreciation for her child's presence in her life, no matter how it manifests. One way to cultivate this perspective is through meditation on impermanence. Find a quiet space and take a moment to reflect on the transient nature of life. Visualize a leaf floating on water, carried gently by the current. Notice how the leaf moves effortlessly, adapting to the flow of the river without resistance. Repeat to yourself, change is natural and inevitable. I will flow with life's changes, not resist them. This practice helps ground you in the present and reminds you that just as the leaf finds harmony with the current, so too can you find peace in the ever-changing dynamics of your relationships. Embracing impermanence also invites us to reflect on the gifts that change brings. While the closeness of early childhood may fade, it is replaced by new opportunities for connection. Your child's independence is not a loss, but a testament to the strength and love you have given them. Every choice they make, every step they take toward their own future, is a reflection of the foundation you helped build. By letting go of the need to control or cling to the past, you allow your relationship to grow in ways you may never have imagined. This does not mean that the journey is without pain. It is natural to grieve the moments that have passed, to feel a pang of longing for the days when your child relied on you completely. But grief, when held with compassion, can be a gateway to acceptance. It allows you to honor the love you have shared while making space for the new forms that love will take. Remember that impermanence does not diminish the value of what was, it enhances it by reminding us to cherish each moment as it comes. In the face of impermanence, gratitude becomes a powerful tool. Instead of focusing on what has changed or what is no longer present, turn your attention to what remains. Reflect on the ways your child still carries your influence, the moments of connection you still share, and the love that continues to flow between you. Gratitude transforms loss into appreciation, allowing you to see the beauty in the evolving nature of your relationship. As you practice embracing impermanence, you may find that your relationship with your child becomes more authentic and meaningful. Without the burden of clinging to the past or fearing the future, you are free to engage with them as they are, not as you wish them to be. This openness creates space for mutual understanding and respect, deepening the bond you share. Imagine the peace that comes from releasing the need to control or resist change. Instead of feeling weighed down by what has been lost, you feel uplifted by what remains. Instead of longing for what was, you find joy in what is. This shift in perspective does not erase the challenges of impermanence, but it empowers you to face them with grace and resilience. Through the lens of impermanence, we come to see that change is not something to be feared but embraced. It is a reminder of life's fluidity, a testament to the interconnectedness of all things. Just as the river flows, shaping and being shaped by the world around it, so too do our relationships evolve. By accepting this truth, we free ourselves from the suffering of resistance and open our hearts to the boundless possibilities that change brings. In the end, impermanence is not an enemy of love, but its ally. It teaches us to treasure each moment, to love deeply without clinging, and to find beauty in the ever-changing tapestry of life. Through acceptance, we discover that love is not confined to a single form or moment. It is a constant presence, flowing through every phase of our journey. Lesson 6. Find peace in the present moment. The Buddha taught that the present moment is the key to true peace. A simple truth that resonates deeply yet often feels elusive. As human beings, our minds are naturally drawn to the past and the future, revisiting old wounds or anticipating uncertainties that may never come to pass. For a mother, this tendency can be particularly strong. Memories of a child's early years, when they look to you for everything, their laughter filling the house, can feel like a warm yet distant dream. At the same time, thoughts of the future, of what your relationship with your child will become, can bring both hope and anxiety. But in this constant tug-of-war between what was and what might be, the beauty of the present moment often slips away unnoticed. Imagine a mother who spends her days longing for a call from her grown child. She checks her phone repeatedly, her heart sinking a little more with each silent hour. When the call finally comes, her mind is so filled with thoughts of why it took so long that she barely listens to her child's voice. In that moment, she is physically present but emotionally elsewhere, still dwelling in her feelings of neglect or fear of being forgotten. What she misses is the very thing she yearned for, the connection that exists right now. In the present moment is all we truly have. The past is gone, unchangeable. no matter how often we revisit it in our minds. The future has not yet arrived and is beyond our control. Yet, so much of our suffering stems from our refusal to accept this truth. We replay conversations in our heads, imagining what we could have said differently. Or we create elaborate scenarios of what might go wrong. In doing so, we miss the simplicity and richness of the now, the only moment where life truly unfolds. The act of finding peace in the present does not mean ignoring the pain of the past or the responsibilities of the future. It means not allowing them to consume you. The Buddha's teachings on mindfulness offer a pathway to this balance, showing us how to fully inhabit the present without being pulled away by regret or worry. Mindful breathing is one of the simplest yet most profound practices to anchor yourself in the now. With each inhale, you remind yourself, "I am here." With each exhale, you affirm, "This moment is enough." These words are not just a mantra, they are an invitation to step out of the endless loop of thoughts and into the stillness of the present. When you practice this regularly, you begin to notice the small moments of beauty that might otherwise pass you by. Perhaps your child doesn't call as often as you would like, but when they do, you can choose to be fully present in that conversation. You can savor the warmth in their voice, the shared memories they mention, or even the simple fact that they reached out. By focusing on what is, rather than what isn't, you open your heart to the gifts of the moment. Consider the story of a mother who learned to find joy in the present despite her child's distance. For years, she felt hurt by how rarely her child visited. Each missed holiday or postponed plan felt like a wound, deepening her sense of abandonment. But one day, she decided to try something different. Instead of waiting for her child to fill the gap she felt, she began to focus on the moments they did share. However brief, she practiced mindful breathing before each conversation, reminding herself, "I am here. This moment is enough." Over time, she discovered that these moments, though fleeting, were full of connection and love when she allowed herself to be fully present. The visits didn't become more frequent, but they became more meaningful. Her relationship with her child remained imperfect, but her relationship with the present moment transformed. Finding peace in the present also means letting go of the need for everything to be perfect. Life is rarely, if ever, exactly as we want it to be. Our relationships are messy. Our plans go awry, and our emotions can be overwhelming. But even within this imperfection, there is beauty. The present moment does not ask for perfection, it only asks for your attention. When you stop waiting for things to be just right before you allow yourself to feel joy, you realize that joy is already here, woven into the fabric of now. This practice of presence extends beyond your interactions with others. It is also about how you treat yourself. Many mothers spend so much time caring for their children that they forget to care for themselves. They may carry guilt for prioritizing their own needs or feel that their worth is tied solely to their role as a caregiver. But the present moment invites you to see yourself as you are, not as a role or a set of responsibilities, but as a person deserving of love and kindness. Take time to pause, breathe, and notice the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your breath, or the sounds around you. These small acts of mindfulness are not selfish, they are acts of self-compassion that replenish your spirit and allow you to give more freely. Peace in the present moment is not a destination, it is a practice. There will be days when your mind resists, pulling you back into old habits of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. On those days, be gentle with yourself. Each time you bring your focus back to the now, even for a single breath, you are strengthening your ability to live fully. The Buddha often compared the mind to a monkey, leaping from branch to branch. Mindfulness is the act of gently guiding that monkey back to stillness, not with force but with patience and persistence. As you cultivate this practice, You may notice a ripple effect in your relationships. When you are present, those around you feel it. Your child may sense the difference in your conversations, noticing that you are truly listening rather than waiting for a certain response. This presence creates a space for deeper connection, free from the weight of unspoken expectations or past grievances. It allows your love to flow more freely, rooted not in what you hope to receive but in what you choose to give. The present moment is not a solution to all of life's challenges, but it is a refuge. It is a place where you can find clarity and calm amid the chaos. It reminds you that even when the past feels heavy or the future uncertain, there's always something to be grateful for right now. Perhaps it is the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds outside your window, or the simple act of taking a deep breath. These moments may seem small, but they are the building blocks of peace. By anchoring yourself in the present, you begin to see that peace is not something to be found or achieved. It is something that has been with you all along, waiting for you to notice it. Through mindfulness, you learn to embrace life as it is, with all its imperfections and uncertainties. You discover that the present moment is not just a passing point in time, it is the only place where life truly happens. And in this realization, you find a freedom and joy that no amount of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future can ever provide. True freedom comes from releasing expectations and embracing the present moment. It's a lesson that resonates deeply, yet one we often need to hear again and again. Buddhism reminds us that love, when freed from attachment, becomes boundless, transformative, and pure. It is a love that flows not because it must, but because it chooses to. And in that choice lies its greatest strength. As a mother, your journey has been one of profound love, countless sacrifices, and unwavering commitment. You have poured so much of yourself into nurturing your child, often putting their needs above your own. Yet, as life evolves and your relationship with your child changes, it's important to remember that love must also include care for yourself. To sustain the love you give to others, you must nourish your own spirit with the same compassion and kindness that you so readily extend. This path is not about perfection or quick fixes, it is a practice. By embracing mindfulness, you begin to ground yourself in the here and now, finding peace in the small, fleeting moments that often go unnoticed. By accepting impermanence, you release the weight of trying to hold on to what was or control what will be, allowing life to flow naturally and beautifully. And by letting go of expectations, you free yourself from the pain of unmet desires, making room for genuine connection and joy. Imagine the peace that can come when you choose to let go of the struggle for control. Picture yourself sitting quietly, your breath steady, your heart open. In this moment, you realize that everything you need to find happiness is already within you. Your worth is not defined by what others do or say, nor is it diminished by the challenges you face. It is inherent, unshakable, and deeply rooted in your own being. As you reflect on these teachings, consider how they might transform not only your relationship with your child, but also your relationship with yourself. What would it feel like to approach each day with curiosity and gratitude, rather than fear or frustration? What would change if you chose to focus on what is, rather than what isn't? These are questions worth exploring, and their answers hold the key to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Let this be your invitation to take the first step. Dedicate a few minutes each day to a meditation practice, even if it's just sitting quietly and breathing deeply. Use this time to cultivate self-compassion, repeating to yourself, "I am enough. I am worthy. I am at peace." These simple affirmations, practiced daily, can begin to reshape the way you see yourself and the world around you. As you move forward, remember that you are not alone on this journey. The lessons we've shared today are part of a collective wisdom that has been passed down through centuries. They are here to support you, guide you, and remind you that peace is always within reach. If this message has resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone who might need to hear it. Perhaps a friend, a sibling, or a fellow mother who is navigating her own challenges. By sharing these insights, you not only help others but also reinforce these lessons in your own heart. I'd also love to hear from you. What part of today's discussion spoke to you the most? Was there a particular lesson that felt especially meaningful? Or perhaps you have your own story or perspective to share. Leave a comment below. I read every one, and your words might inspire someone else who is on a similar path. Let's create a space of positivity and support, where we can all learn and grow together. Thank you for spending this time with me and for opening your heart to these ideas. Your presence here is a testament to your commitment to personal growth and the love you bring to the relationships in your life. Remember, as the Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. You have the power to create serenity, regardless of the circumstances around you. Before you go, don't forget to like this video if it brought value to your day and subscribe for more insights and teachings like these. Together, we can continue to explore what it means to live with mindfulness, compassion, and love. Until next time, take care of yourself. Cherish the moments you have. And remember, you are enough, just as you are.